The market sell-off is accelerating this morning during a week of economic data from the labor market and from the manufacturing space. Our next guest is looking at areas where momentum might start to unwind and implementing a playbook to mitigate potential risk with regards to that. So joining us now, we have Jonathan Krinsky, BTIG Managing Director and Chief Market Technician. Jonathan, thank you for being here this morning. I want to start with you on some of the volatility that we're seeing, because we're seeing that the VIX is really on a tear today, up, I think, 1.3 points as of the last time that I checked here. Talk to me about what that is an indication of when you are looking at sort of the technicals and what it means for what this market is trading on and what they're thinking about what the Federal Reserve's next moves might be.
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately the VIX is primarily in inverse to what the market's doing, right? So while you can have periods where the VIX will go up in a rising tape, generally VIX up happens when you get markets selling off. And I think when you've looked at what's going on in the market over the last few months, it's really a function of massive dispersion. So you've had the winning stocks, the high momentum stocks doing extremely well, and the low momentum stocks doing extremely poor. And so there's been a lot of volatility in the single stock space below the surface, but they've just kind of offset each other. And so you've kind of had this calm S&P 500 on the surface, and that's coincided with a low VIX. So I think we're starting to see a little bit of that momentum unwind, which is typical in April. Actually, you tend to get, it's actually the worst month of the year on average for long short momentum strategy. So, we're seeing areas like semis that have had an amazing run starting to pull back. And then you're seeing areas like utilities, which have, lagged over the last few months, starting to actually perform well. So there's different parts of the market doing different things, but ultimately when you get that kind of momentum, that correlation break, that's when you see the rising VIX like we're seeing today.
Well, you mentioned chip stocks. Let's focus on the stocks here for a second. On the Wi-Fi Interactive, I have the iShares Semiconductor ETF, SOXX. Here's a year to date. You can see we've kind of stalled out, as you said, over the last month, trading sideways there. Here is the last year. So this is actually still in an upward trend, it looks like, by my crude drawing. We had this big 5-month rally. How much more downside should we expect before, if this stock or if this industry group is able to regain its highs?
Yeah, so semis have been one of the best groups in the market for some time now. By many metrics, they're as extended as they've been in 2 decades. The S&P 500 Semi Index, depending on how you look at it, over the last 5 months, biggest 5-month gain since 2000. The spread versus its 200-day moving average is about as high as we've seen over the last couple of decades. So it all says it's priced for perfection. And then what's interesting is that while April is generally a pretty good month for the overall market for the S&P and even the NASDAQ, it's been one of the worst months of the year for semis over the last decade. It's been down about 8 of the last 12 years. So, the setup there is for some continued weakness. As far as how much further downside, that's tough to say. I think we'll kind of take it day by day, but certainly that's one of the biggest parts of this momentum unwind, if indeed that's what we're seeing right now.
Jonathan, I'm going to oversimplify a field that I know you and Jared are both experts in, so please just go with me on this journey here. But I know in the technical space, you kind of look to the past as an indication of what could be coming in the future. How effective is that strategy when we didn't have ChatGPT a couple of years ago? And more directly, I'm kind of asking, does what happened in the semi space make sense anymore in a world where we have AI?
I mean, that's a great question. I think ultimately it comes down to investor psychology and human emotions. They go through the same patterns through every cycle. And so every cycle is different, but ultimately when you see certain metrics and certain patterns emerge, it is somewhat consistent over time. And so we're certainly in a new exciting upcycle for the semi AI trade. And it doesn't mean that the run is over by any means, but I think just if you're talking about the next couple months, especially this month in particular, I think you just have to be a bit careful in the semis here. But yeah, it's certainly an exciting time with some new technology coming out.
Jonathan, I got a bunch more questions, but we do have to leave it here. Always appreciate you stopping by. Jonathan Krinsky, BTIG Managing Director and Chief Market Technician.